Ever dreamt of a place where adventure never stops and every corner tells a story? Thailand is that dream come to life. From its bustling cities to peaceful hideaways, it's a land that promises something for everyone. Thailand isn't just a place to visit, it's a place to experience. Once you step foot in this incredible country, you'll realize it's more than just a destination, it's a journey waiting to be lived. Thailand is the only Southeast Asian country never colonized, and that pride runs deep. Thailand has over 40,000 temples, each with its own story. Thailand celebrates New Year in April with a giant water fight called Songkran. Thailand runs on the Buddhist calendar, which is over 500 years ahead. Thailand's elephants are national symbols of strength and peace. Thailand's street food is world famous, with flavors as bold as its culture. The moment I landed in Thailand, I felt like I had stepped into a world I didn't know I was missing. The air was thick with heat, noise, and energy, and every sense lit up at once. I walked through streets that pulsed with life, where every corner offered something unexpected. I tasted food that exploded with flavors I couldn't describe but couldn't forget. I met people who smiled like they'd known me forever, even though we didn't share a single word. I watched sunsets that felt unreal, like the sky had been painted just for that moment. I rode through winding roads where the landscape changed faster than my thoughts. I found peace in places I didn't expect, where silence spoke louder than words. I got lost more than once, but those detours always led to something better. I heard music in the streets, in the temples, in the wind, music that made me feel like I belonged. I saw traditions being lived, not preserved, and felt the weight of history without needing to understand it. I learned that time moves differently here, not slower, just fuller. I tried things I never imagined I would, and somehow they all made sense. I felt more connected to everything and less worried about anything. I realized quickly that Thailand doesn't just welcome you, it pulls you in. I didn't plan to stay long, but each day made it harder to leave. I woke up each morning not knowing what the day would bring, and that became the best part of every day. I wandered without a map, and every turn felt like a secret waiting to be discovered. I shared meals with strangers who felt like friends by the end of the night. I stood still in crowds and somehow felt calm, like I was exactly where I needed to be. I watched locals move through their routines with grace, like every action held meaning. I found beauty in small things: an old wooden door, a bowl of noodles, a lantern flickering at dusk. I sat by the water and let the silence speak louder than any conversation could. I danced in the rain without thinking, because in that moment, nothing else mattered. I listened to stories I couldn't fully understand, but I felt every word. I took photos I didn't need, because the memories were already burned into my mind. I let go of plans and expectations, and that freedom felt like flying. I walked through markets that smelled like spices and sounded like celebration. I watched the world slow down as the sun dipped behind the trees, and it felt like the earth was breathing. I felt awe, not from grand sights alone, but from the feeling that life here meant more. I laughed without reason, and that joy stayed with me long after. I realized that in Thailand, even ordinary moments feel extraordinary. I drifted through days without counting them, and somehow each one felt more alive than the last. I followed the sound of drums down alleys and found festivals I didn't know existed. I sat on rooftops watching the city light up like it had a heartbeat of its own. I drank tea with elders who spoke with their eyes more than their mouths. I saw monks walk barefoot through morning streets, and the world felt still just for a moment. I watched boats glide across water like they'd been doing it for centuries. I walked barefoot where the ground felt sacred, and somehow I felt lighter with every step. I let the chaos wrap around me without fear, because it never felt out of control. I smelled incense in the air and felt memories I hadn't lived rise to the surface. I saw children play with nothing but joy, and it reminded me what freedom really looks like. I stayed up late listening to the city breathe, and it whispered stories I wanted to follow. I moved between quiet and chaos, and both felt like home. I rode through mountain roads with no destination, and every curve brought a new kind of peace. I watched artisans shape beauty with their hands, and every detail felt like a lesson in patience. I found temples hidden in plain sight, and each one held a different kind of silence. I stood still while the world moved fast around me, and I finally understood what it meant to be present. I followed shadows as the sun shifted, and each one led me somewhere I didn't expect. I watched flames dance in paper lanterns, carrying wishes I didn't need to speak out loud. I walked through rain that didn't bother me, because in that moment, I felt completely alive. I saw strangers help each other like kindness was the only rule that mattered. I watched the sky turn gold and purple without needing a single filter. I felt the ground shake from drums during a celebration I didn't plan to find. I touched carvings so old they felt like they remembered every hand before mine. I stood in silence beside strangers, all of us looking at the same thing and feeling something different. I climbed stairs I couldn't see the end of, and at the top, I found more than just a view. I breathed in air so thick with scent and sound, it felt like it had weight. I floated through places that felt untouched, but deeply alive. I listened to silence so complete, it made my heartbeat sound loud. I watched the wind move through fields like it was painting with light. I held moments that didn't need words, and they stayed with me longer than any conversation. I kept walking because every path felt like it was meant to be taken. I stayed longer than I planned, because Thailand never stopped showing me something new. I woke to mornings where the mist hugged the earth, and everything felt fresh like a new beginning. I followed the scent of jasmine weaving through narrow streets, guiding me to hidden corners. I tasted sweetness in every fruit I tried, each one bursting with stories of sun and soil. I felt the cool touch of rivers that whispered secrets older than time. I watched fishermen cast their nets with a rhythm that echoed generations. I sat beneath towering trees that seemed to hold the sky up for me to see. I heard laughter spill from open windows, a soundtrack to a life lived fully. I felt the pulse of music blending ancient and modern, moving through crowded squares and quiet temples alike. I found solace in quiet moments, where the world slowed just enough to breathe. I learned that every smile here carries warmth, and every goodbye is just a promise to return. I discovered that in Thailand, even the simplest experiences are wrapped in magic. I felt the weight of history and the lightness of hope all at once. I saw colors brighter than I'd ever known, painted across markets, festivals, and faces. I let myself be carried by the rhythm of this place, knowing each step was part of something bigger. I stayed open to every moment, and Thailand met me there, again and again.